This time, director Sean Baker decides to focus on characters that are very different from characters he's focused on before, or are they? Here's my review of Anora. Anora, or Annie as she likes to be called, played by Mikey Madison, is a 23-year-old stripper at a very busy strip club. Annie knows and understands a little bit of Russian, and because her grandmother was Russian and only doesn't speak any English, so she is forced to understand what her grandmother says. And one night, her boss asks her to entertain a few clients who are Russian who have entered the club. Annie takes one of the Russian boys, Ivan, played by Eydelshteyn, up to her private booth so she can dance for him privately. Ivan takes a shining to Anora, and eventually Ivan asks Anora if she works outside of the club. Annie agrees to spend some time with Ivan outside the club, and Ivan invites Annie back to his mansion. Annie spends several nights at Ivan's mansion, including New Year's Eve, and eventually Ivan asks Annie if they can become exclusive, and Annie agrees at the right price. Ivan's parents want him to come back to Russia and work for their private company, but Ivan wants to stay in America, and so he, on a whim, he asks Annie if she wants to marry him, and she agrees. On a wild trip to Las Vegas, they get married, and once they're back in New York City, Ivan's minders and family and parents, rumors start circulating that Ivan has married a stripper. So Ivan's parents have booked a flight to America, and Ivan starts freaking out because Ivan getting married to a stripper would be very, very bad for Ivan's family's reputation. That's all I'll say about Anora's plot. It's best to explore the film for yourself, but I've only explained maybe the first 45 minutes of the story. The second half of the film is quite a wild ride. Anora is directed by Sean Baker, who has directed films such as Tangerine, The Florida Project, and Red Rocket. I did enjoy Anora quite a lot, but for me, Anora is probably my least favorite of the Sean Baker films I've seen so far. I'm not going to give away too much of the story. It's best to see this film for yourself, but I did label this movie review a spoiler review because I'm going to go into the plot just a little bit just to explain what I did and didn't like about the film. The film is just about a stripper who meets a Russian client and they get married, and then it's a wild story. That's all you need to know about the film. It's best to go into the film fresh and knowing as little as possible. The first half of the film is just Anora and Ivan meeting and partying and drugs and drinking and over and over and over again. And then in the middle section of the film, things get very serious after they get married. And then the narrative structure of the film changes completely in the second half of the film. And we're joined with Anora and Ivan's minders on a wild, crazy night. I had heard this film was very, very funny and that it's a comedy, but in the first half of the film, I was thinking this film is not very funny. It's just like a couple of young people drinking and partying. Like, when is this going to get funny? But then once we're introduced to Ivan's mentors and they spend some time with Anora, they have some really crazy interactions with Anora, and that's when the film picks up and it gets very, very funny and entertaining. I did find the party scenes in the first half of the film a little bit monotonous. I was just waiting for them to be over because I found Ivan and his friends a little bit obnoxious and annoying. So, but if you're patient, once we get to the second half of the film, the film does get a lot more entertaining and varied and wild. I didn't really fully buy the relationship between Anora and Ivan. I understand why she would say yes when he asks her to marry him, because she sees it like a golden ticket and he has a lot of money. But she doesn't really seem that naive. She seems very, very street smart. And Ivan is very childish. He is 21 years old, but he acts like he's 14 or 15. He just wants to play video games and party. And even when he has sex with Anora, he has sex like a very young teenager for the first time. And so I didn't really buy their relationship in the beginning. So I didn't really buy it when she started to have feelings for him, because they seem really, really different and he just seems very, very immature. And I feel as an audience we're two steps ahead of Anora and what's going to happen. So once events unfold at the conclusion of the film, we're not really that surprised at what happens. It's Mikey Madison's performance as Anora is definitely one of the main reasons to see this film. There's not really much on the page. There's not really much character development for her, so she really has to embody this character, and she really makes us feel for her journey, and yes, she really gives a magnetic, wild performance in this film, unpredictable for performance, and she really breathes life into Anora. The trio of actors who play Ivan's minders, Karren, Karagulian, Yura, Borisov, and Vache, Tovmasyan. They have a really nice dynamic between each other. Their characters clearly have a lot of history together, and they really interact well with each other, and they get into some really funny, wild, crazy scenarios with Anora. Karren especially, he gives a really over the top, wild performance. He has really one clear objective in this film, and he's determined to get it no matter what. And he's very funny and entertaining, and one of the highlights of the film. And Mikey Madison and Yura Borisov, they have a nice, playful chemistry, and their relationship slowly simmers along the surface as the film goes on. I give Anora 4 stars out of 5. I did have some misgivings about the film, but the fantastic lead performance from Mikey Madison and some of the supporting characters, and this, in the second half of the film, it's quite wild and quite funny and very, very, very entertaining. And the ending really, really gets you thinking, and the ending will really spark some conversation. So I definitely recommend checking out Anora. Thanks for watching. Did you see Anora? Comment below what you thought of Anora. See you next time. Bye.